Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Eva and this is my cozy corner of the internet, and today we are going to be doing our week 2 check-in for 75 booked. So if you're new here and you've not seen week 1, I would suggest you go watch that. It is vlog style and I'm going to explain why there is going to be a bit of a change in how I choose to film these updates. We're going to talk about that, but the first 75 booked check-in is a vlog style check-in where I tried to vlog every other day or so, but we are going to be changing that up. So there's going to be 2 things that are changing for 75 booked as far as like rules and ways to make it a little more streamlined for me on the back end. So one of those things is that the check-ins are actually going to be filmed from now on as weekly sit-down videos. These will still go up every Friday that I have them on the schedule for. If you want to see the full schedule, it is over on my community tab. I believe it is the second post. So if you want to go see that, you can look at that and that will help you know when they're going up. Essentially, the week after the actual week that you're watching will be how it goes up. So this week's video was technically is last week's update. I hope that makes sense. It'll make sense once you see. I will be labeling each video with the dates on which I read the books. Okay? Okay. And like that we did the challenge. So that is first. Second of all, I am going to be using a stopwatch in order to keep track of time. So I tried that this week by using a stopwatch instead of just making myself split it into 2 45-minute sessions. Now, I will say that I tend to read for longer, I tend to read closer to an hour at a time instead of 45 minutes, but my goal is still going to be to read at least an hour and a half every single day. Now, you're going to see in this week's check-in for November 10th through the 16th that I actually read more consistently for around 2 or 2.5 hours as opposed to an hour and a half. This is just because honestly my brain operates a little bit differently. I don't tend to do 45-minute sprints even when I'm doing live sprints, right? And essentially what we're doing is we're doing 2 45-minute sprints for this challenge every day. But I tend to do hour and sometimes hour and a half long sprints. So more realistically would be for me to change this challenge to where I'm reading for 2 hour-long sprints a day, but we're going to leave it at the 45 minutes, and my goal is just going to be that throughout the course of my entire day, I will read for at least an hour and a half. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to be doing that by using the stopwatch feature on my phone and starting and stopping the stopwatch when I am reading or when I am not reading. So obviously starting it when I am reading and stopping it when I am not. This way I have a more accurate depiction of how long I'm actually reading, especially when it comes to things like my audiobooks, because I listen to my audiobooks faster than 1 times speed. So looking at the audiobook counter doesn't always help me, depending on the app that I'm using and how they keep track of how long you've read. Because I may have listened to 2 hours worth of an audiobook in an hour. I hope that makes sense. So let's go over the stats for November 10th to the 16th. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start by just doing a quick fire of how many hours and everything that I read each day. And then we'll talk about the amount of pages and hours that I read in total. If you want full stats like water drank and all of that, I put those over on my Instagram because it gives me a little bit more. I don't know that people necessarily care about how much water I'm drinking, but essentially if you want to kind of do the math, I have been very consistent with 2 32-ounce straw cups worth of water a day. So that is kind of where we're going with that. So let's begin. So the first so on Monday, which was the 10th, I listened to 2 hours of Death Trap. Now I'm going to try to remember to put a picture here of what Death Trap is. This was a true crime book, and I started this book also on Monday. So I read from the beginning of the book to 35%. That was a total of 116 pages. So in total, I read for 2 hours that day. And again, we use the stopwatch feature. So I haven't been breaking it down in Storygraph into 2 sections anymore. I've just kind of been reading what I'm reading. And I sometimes it will reflect 2 sessions if I've read 2 books. I hope that makes sense. So I only read Death Trap. I read for 2 hours, and I read 116 pages for a total of 116 pages on Monday. On Tuesday, I read for 2.5 hours. I listened to 190 pages of Death Trap, so I got from 35% to 66%. And then I read 37 pages of Love Arranged, so I made it from 26% to 33% for a total of 227 pages for the day. Now, Death Trap, I did listen as an audiobook. Love Arranged, which is this book, I am reading on my Kindle. So I hope that is helpful. On Wednesday, I read for another 2.5 hours, and I got from 33% to 50% of Love Arranged, which was a total of 95 pages for Wednesday. On Thursday, I listened to another 2 hours of Death Trap, so I made it from 66% to 100%. I ended up finishing this book that day for a total of 158 pages on Thursday. On Friday, I read for another 2 hours, and I read from 50% to 60% of Love Arranged. So this was a total of 56 pages for Friday. Sorry. Now, Saturday and Sunday were kind of toss-up days. So Saturday, I went to the Alexander K concert, so I did not read as much. And then Sunday is kind of a family day. Saturday and Sunday, I still get my hour and a half in, but a lot of times it is very broken up. So for Saturday, I only read for an hour and a half. Like I read exactly for an hour and a half, but it was very sporadic. It was like 1 or 2 pages here, 1 or 2 pages there. And I started a new book on Saturday. So I started Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton, and I made it from 0% to 6% of this book for a total of 26 pages on Saturday. And then on Sunday, I read for another hour and a half, and I read from 6% to 13% of Does It Hurt for a total, again, of 26 pages on Sunday. So that is kind of where we are with that. Now, obviously, I've made it much farther into this book since then, but that is just simply because it's a new week in real time. You know what I'm saying? So I did start this one on Saturday and Sunday, but again, Saturday and Sunday are kind of toss-up days. On Saturday and Sunday, I did read this on my Kindle. I did not start the audiobook because I knew that my reading would be very sporadic and very like a couple pages here, a couple pages there. So total, I read 704 pages, which is 200 pages more than I read last week for week 1 of 75 booked. Part of this is I did more audiobooks this week, or more audio booking, I should say, this week than I did in week 1, which is fine. It just means that I also read more pages if I'm doing audio. And I read for a total of 14 hours. Now, I did not add up my hours last week because I think I did on Instagram, but I knew that I only read for the hour and a half. Like, in week 1, I was very diligent about breaking my reading up into 2 45-minute stints. So I was reading 45 minutes in the morning and 45 minutes at night. Now, the issue with me for this was that there were some times where I was like, well, I could continue reading, which is another reason I decided to do the stopwatch method, because this allows for more leeway without me having to do extra work in tracking. Because that was the thing, is that I was making myself stop at an hour and a half in week 1 because I didn't want to have to go through and try to do the math to add up how much more I had been reading. So the stopwatch method is going to work much better for me, I think. And on average, sometimes I don't always read more than an hour and a half, but if it's like a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, those are dedicated reading days. And so it's pretty guaranteed, because that's how my workflow works. So it's pretty guaranteed that on those 3 days, I'm going to read longer than an hour and a half. So the stopwatch method just works better. Now, my journal for my weekly spreads gives me a low light and a highlight. I don't necessarily know that I had one. I did give Death Trap, I believe, 3.5 stars. Most of that was because I didn't like the audio narration. The story itself was really good. So I think that really it would have been more of like a 4 or 4.5 if I'd read with my eyeballs. So I'm still kind of going back and forth on my rating for this, because since I did it mostly with audio, well, actually I did all of it with audio. I didn't read any of it on my Kindle because I was reading Love Arranged. I think that it really dampened my experience because I didn't like the narrator. And audiobooks, when I do just audio, the narration carries a lot of weight in my rating. So there's that. But if I had to pick a low light and a highlight, I guess my highlight would be Love Arranged. I'm really, really enjoying Love Arranged. It's so good. It is the third book in a series, so I was pretty sure that I would like this one. I don't think that it's my favorite of the three. I do think that Love Unwritten is still going to be my favorite one. I gave that one 6 stars, and I really enjoyed it. But I'm enjoying the dynamic between Lily and Lorenzo in Love Arranged. And then I guess my low light would be Death Trap. I'm kind of in the future filming this, so I could say more, but we're going to say that for the week of November 10th through 16th, my highlight was Love Arranged and my low light was Death Trap, I guess, just because I haven't read enough in this week of Does It Hurt to really have an opinion on it. So let's talk really quick about the books that I plan on reading and or continuing into week 3 of 75 booked. So for week 3, I will be continuing Love Arranged. Of course, I'm going to hopefully finish this one in week 3. That is what I'm hoping. I don't have the audiobook for this one. I don't want the audiobook for this one. I did have someone ask me in week 1 why I didn't choose to pick up the audiobook. And the reason is because I didn't read the other 2 in this series with audio. And I found the hard way with the Jacksonville Rays series, which is right there behind that balloon, that I either need to do a series completely with audio or completely without audio. Now I can do kind of an in-between. So like the series, I can see the book from here. It has the Spare, the Air, and then I don't remember what the other one was called. I think it's Biotech Billionaire series. In that series, I've done both. So I've done a mixture of audio and ebook. And the reason is because you can get those on Kindle Unlimited. So I had started the Spare. I had read about half of it with the audio and half of it with the ebook. If I do it that way, then I can easily pick up the audio. But I didn't read these at all with audio. I just picked them up on Kindle Unlimited and read them on my Kindle. So I'm not going to mix them up that way because of that. So that is that for that one. And then I am going to be continuing Does It Hurt for the week as well. This one I just started at the very end of week 2. So I started this one on Saturday in week 2. And I'm going to continue it. This is for Patreon. This is like their smut review book. So I'm listening to the audiobook of this. And yeah, I'm going to continue it so that I have like notes and stuff. And it'll be a sit-down video for Patreon. So if you want my full unfiltered thoughts on this one, you'll have to watch that. Like it is a top tier perk. So for $8, I do a smut review every month, and this is the one that we have. So that I will be continuing this one. And then as far as any new books that I would like to start, I would like to start reading Ashes of the Sun in week 3. This is just so that we can start this one. Okay. My friends have been yelling at me to read this book. So we're going to, because I have this one and the second one. So we're going to start this one this week. I am just waiting for Libby to give me the audiobook. I have it unsuspended, so I'm hoping that I get it very quickly. If not, I will have to just purchase the audio, which is fine. Or I may just purchase the ebook because it is currently on special for $1.99. I don't really want to continue buying Kindle books. I don't have to, but my library has it maxed out holds wise. I think it's like a 4-week wait for the audio or for the ebook. So I may spend the $1.99 and grab Ashes of the Sun just so that I have it on my Kindle, because if I'm going to have to read it with my eyes, I'd rather do it on my Kindle. You know what I mean? But that is what we're going to be trying to read for week 3. So if you have any questions about how this challenge works, I did explain it in week 1, and there is like a full list of rules over on my Instagram. But essentially, the generic rules of this challenge are to read twice a day for 45 minutes. So 2 45-minute long sprints per day, to drink water, whatever that amount looks like to you. For me, it is 2 32-ounce cups of water a day. To do one of your sessions not in your bed or on your couch or wherever you usually read. For me, that means that I try to do one session that is not audiobooking. Now, I've kind of moved this around because there have been days, like full days, where I didn't pick up an audiobook at all. So I kind of have left this up to my own discretion, and this has been kind of a loose rule. This rule was made more for myself to not rely on my audiobooks. I'll be honest, because sometimes I will get into a rut where I just don't pick up my Kindle for days and days and days and days because I'm just audiobooking everything. However, I've had a really good mix of books that I have read on audiobook and ebook. So this rule will you'll only really hear about this rule coming into effect if I notice that I'm slipping into only reading audiobooks all the time. And then also a book buying ban. The creator of this, Emily Page Books, it was like, well, I'm going to go on a book buying ban. I don't really buy that many books. However, it is a rule for me to make sure that I'm utilizing Libby and Hoopla before I'm purchasing audiobooks. I have a big thing with purchasing audiobooks. I love purchasing audiobooks, especially from places like Libro FM. Now, I have allowed myself to purchase some audios from Libro FM and purchase credits through them. However, I would prefer to utilize Libby and Hoopla if I can. Of course, I will purchase the audios if I can get them through Libro FM through them, because that also helps to keep my local indie bookstore open. But I'm just kind of trying. I tend to be a big buyer of audios, not such a big buyer of physical books, because those are usually gifted to me. So I don't purchase a lot of those on my own. But that is all that I have for this week of 75 Booked. So I hope that you have enjoyed these check-ins. Let me know if you are doing 75 Booked or if it is something that you would want to do. I started this on November 1st because November is my personal new year. I like to not reset. I like to refresh and recharge in the month of November through December, so that in January I'm already recharged and fresh and everything. But yeah, I was born in November, so that's when I prefer to kind of start my new year over, new year, new me type thing. So that is where we are. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. All of my links are down below, including Patreon, wish lists, and any social media that you might need, along with some resources for things like Black Lives Matter if you want to help with those things. And I will see y'all somewhere else on the internet very soon. Bye!